Hello students, welcome to UPSC Ocean Current Affairs Analysis dated 7th July 2026 Hindu newspaper. So in today's class we will discuss these articles. So Pahalgam attack, NIA files charge sheet against LET chief. El Nino may reduce the number of cyclones in the Bay of Bengal, and in India voting cannot remain merely a statutory right. Modi begins three-nation tour, starts with Indonesia to boost strategic ties. Diamond jewelry among payloads to be launched by Vikram 1 rocket, and El Nino set to dent India's wind and hydropower output. Okay, so let's see the first article. Pahalgam attack, NIA files charge sheets against LET chief. So this particular article can link with the internal security of the UPSC syllabus. Okay, so this article is about the Pahalgam terror attack and the latest action taken by the National Investigation Agency. Okay, by NIA. This is important. So in simple words, if you have to say, the NIA has filed a fresh charges against the Hafiz Saeed. He is the person, Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Lashkar-e-Taiba, LET, and it's a proxy organization, TRF, the Resistant Front. So let us understand this entire issue. See, first of all, we need to understand what happened in the Pahalgam attack. So students, on 22nd April 2025, a terrorist attack took place in the Pahalgam, Jammu Kashmir. So in this attack, 26 civilians lost their lives. And after the attack, NIA started a detailed investigation to identify who planned the attack, who supported the attackers, and who financed the operations. Okay. So the NIA has now filed a supplementary charge sheet. Supplementary charge sheet means an additional charge field after new evidence is collected during the investigation. So as the investigation continues, agencies often gather the new information. So that information is then presented to the court through a supplementary charge sheet. So the NIA has filed a charge against this Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Resistant Front. The agency says these organizations have played a role in planning the attack, facilitating the attack, even executing the attack. So this is an important thing for the UPSC, especially in the perspective of internal security and especially in the point of terrorism. In these perspectives, so this is an important article because he is a person, no? He is India considered this Hafiz Saeed as a mastermind behind the several terrorist attacks like 2001 Parliament attack and 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. So he has also been designated as a global terrorist by the United Nations. And even the LET is a Pakistan-based terrorist organization. It has been involved in several terrorist attacks in India, and the organization is banned in India under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA. Okay. Even this TRF, the Resistant Front. So TRF is believed to be a proxy organization of LET, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and now what is meant by this proxy organization means it means a group that operates under a different name but works for another terrorist organization. Such groups are often considered to avoid the international attention and sanctions. Okay. So here the most important part under the UPSC which you have to learn is like what is meant by an NIA. NIA has involved various sections of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, BNS 2023, and the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA of 1967, and the agency has also involved the provisions related to waging a war against India, criminal conspiracy, and even the terrorist attacks. Okay. So this makes an important article regarding internal security, cross-border terrorism, and even the role of NIA, and in the perspective of India-Pakistan relations. This particular article you have to look at it at a glance. Okay. So have a quick rough notes, revision notes. So where NIA filed a supplementary charge sheet against Hafiz Saeed, LET and TRF, investigation is being conducted under UAPA and BNS 2023. A supplementary charge sheet is filed when new evidence emerges after the original charge sheet. Highlights India's effort to combat the cross-border terrorism. Institutions like NIA, LET, TRF and UAPA. This is what these institutions we have to know. Okay. Next, if you see the next article, El Nino may reduce the number of cyclones in Bay of Bengal, finds INCOAS studies. Okay, again, this particular article can be linked with the geography of the UPSC syllabus, and that is GS1 of the UPSC syllabus mains, and also the GS3 of disaster management. Okay, disaster management, climate change, early warning system. So, in this perspective, you can study this particular article, and this article is about the El Nino. El Nino and as well as the tropical cyclones. Tropical cyclones in the Bay of Bengal. So, the main finding of the study is very interesting because the study says that during El Nino years, the number of cyclones in the Bay of Bengal usually decreases. So, let's understand why. So, first of all, we need to understand what is meant by this El Nino. So, El Nino means it's a climate phenomenon in which the sea surface temperature in the central and the eastern Pacific Ocean becomes warmer than the normal. Let's see here. So, let's see here in the picture. In the central and the eastern Pacific Ocean, the temperature becomes warmer than the normal. So, these warming affect weather patterns across the world, and yes, it also affects India. Usually, when El Nino occurs, El Nino. So, remember El Nino. So, E means, right? Remember, like E means enemy. So, it is enemy to India. When El Nino occurs, it is an enemy to India, means less rainfall. Okay, less rainfall. If you are studying about El Nino, you have to know about the La Nina also. So, La Nina is like kind of love. So, the love for India. That means more rainfall to India. Remember like that. So, the difference between El Nino and La Nina. Okay, so during the El Nino times, India receives a less rainfall during the monsoon season. So, La Nina is exactly opposite to the El Nino, whereas in the La Nina conditions, during the sea surface temperature in the central and the eastern Pacific Ocean becomes cooler than the normal. So, generally, the La Nina is associated with the better monsoons rainfall in India and more favorable conditions for the cyclone formation. Okay. So, here in this particular article, according to the scientist from the INCOAS, INCOAS studied cyclone activity in the Bay of Bengal between 1995 to 2019. They compared the three situations: El Nino years, the La Nina years, and the neutral years, and they found something very interesting, that only 15 cyclones formed during 9 El Nino years. That means cyclone activity was relatively low during the El Nino years, and cyclone activity increased significantly, like around 33 cyclones formed during 11 La Nino years. That means more than double the number during the El Nino years. So, neutral years are the years when neither El Nino nor La Nina conditions are present. Even during these years, cyclone activity remained fairly high. About 17 cyclones formed during the 5 neutral years. So, cyclones, how these particular cyclones are formed, if you look at, no? For the formation of cyclones needs warm ocean water, we require a moisture, and a favorable atmospheric condition is going to be required, right? So, during the El Nino, the large scale changes happen in the atmosphere and the ocean, and these changes make the tropical Indian Ocean relatively cooler and create a conditions that are less favorable for the cyclone formation in the Bay of Bengal. As a result, a fewer cyclones are formed. Okay, so during the La Nina, the Indian Ocean remains relatively warmer, atmospheric condition becomes more favorable. So, these increases the chances of cyclone formation, stronger storms, more frequent tropical cyclones. And cyclones are among the most destructive natural disasters. So, they cause like heavy rainfall, strong winds, flooding, storm surges, loss of lives and property. So, if the scientists can understand the relation between this ENSO and cyclones, they can improve the weather forecasting, early warning systems, even the disaster preparedness. See, students, I am talking about INCOS. What is meant by this INCOS? INCOS is a Indian National Center for the Ocean Information Services, and it is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. See, UPSC's favorite theme is about ministries in the prelims and prelims questions, especially. UPSC majority of the time they ask about the ministries questions. Okay, let's have a look at the ministry. Okay, so it mains works includes ocean forecasting, tsunamis warnings, marine weather services, and even the ocean related research. So this topic connects to several parts of the syllabus like climate, monsoon, cyclones, disaster management, even the oceanography of the UPSC prelims and GS paper 1 and paper 3 of the syllabus. Okay. So let's see the quick revision of this. Yes. According to this, INCOIS studies link ENSO with the cyclone frequency in the Bay of Bengal. El Nino years generally witnesses fewer cyclones and La Nino years witnesses higher cyclones activity. ENSO significantly influences the Indian monsoon and weather patterns. This is important for disaster preparedness and cyclone forecasting. Okay, so let's see the next article. In India, voting cannot remain merely a statutory right. So this particular editorial can be linked with the polity and even the constitutional part of this of India, electoral reforms, even the fundamental rights, and regarding Article 326 of the Constitution. Okay, so let's see. So this particular article discusses a very interesting constitutional questions. The question is like, is voting a fundamental right or only a statutory right? So this debate has come back into the discussion recently. Let's understand it in a very simple way. So first of all, we need to understand what is meant by a statutory right. Okay. Students, a statutory right is a right given by a law made by a parliament. So, for example, the right to vote today comes mainly from the two acts. The first one is the Representation of People's Act 1950 and Representation of People's Act 1951. Since the parliament created these laws, the Supreme Court traditionally said that voting is a statutory right. So then we need to understand then what is meant by a fundamental right. So okay, so fundamental right is directly protected by the Constitution. For example, right to equality. Okay, right to equality that comes from the Article 14, freedom of speech. Okay, right to life, under Article 21. So these rights get stronger constitutional protections. Okay, so students, because over the years the Supreme Court itself has started giving the constitutional protection to many aspects of voting. So let's see some examples. So the first important case here, it is the ADR case. Okay, so ADR case is in 2002. This is a Union of India versus Association for Democratic Reforms 2002. So the Supreme Court said that the voters have the right to know. That means voters can know the criminal cases against the candidates, educational qualifications, assets and the liabilities. The court said these rights comes under the Article 19 of 1 of A of freedom of speech and expression. Then came another judgment, that is PUCL case 2003. So here the Supreme Court said the act of voting may be a statutory, but making an informed choice while voting is a fundamental right under Article 19 of 1 of A. Okay, so this is a very important development. And then came the famous Nota judgment. Okay, Nota case in Nota case in 2013. Here the Supreme Court recognized the right to reject through the options. Nota is none of the above. The court said that even choosing nota is a form of a political expression. Again, this was protected under the Article 19. Again, this is also under the Article 19 of 1 of A. Okay, so the court says that right to know is protected, right to make an informed choice is protected, right to reject candidates is protected, but at the same time the actual act of voting is still called a statutory right. So that is why the author calls it a constitutional anomaly. Okay, so this is very important for prelims because this particular thing can be linked with the Article 326. Okay, so Article 326 provides for the universal adult suffrage. This means every citizen above 18 years of age has a right to vote subjected to certain disqualifications. So the constitution itself gives importance to the voting. So think about it. How does democracy work? Through elections, right? And how do elections work? Through voting. So without voting, there is no democracy. So therefore the vote is the instrument through which people exercise their sovereignty. So that is why many experts believe that voting deserves a stronger constitutional protection. Okay, so does this means every election rule should become a fundamental right? No. So here the article clearly says that parliament should still make laws regarding age requirements, electoral rolls, disqualifications, election procedures. So these administrative details can remain statutory, but the core right to participate in elections deserves a constitutional recognition. So the author says here, since democracy is a part of the basic structure, free and fair elections are a part of the basic structure, then the citizen's right to vote should not remain merely a statutory right. The Supreme Court may need to revisit its old position. So this is very important for UPSC because this particular topic connects many areas of UPSC syllabus like fundamental rights, electoral reforms, democracy, even the basic structure doctrine, and the judicial interpretation. So this is very important topic for the UPSC mains years paper 2 and even in the essay writing also. Okay. So please have a look on this. So then what's your opinion about making this right to vote statutory right, or can we make this right to vote as a fundamental right? Comment your opinion. Okay. So let's have a quick revision of this. Yes, the right to vote is a statutory right under the Representation of Peoples Act. According to Article 326 provides for the universal adult suffrage, nota, and the voter's right to information are linked with Article 19 of 1 of A, and debate continues on recognizing voting as a fundamental right. This is important for electoral reforms and constitutional governance. Okay, so let's have a look on another article here. Yes, the Modi begins a 3-nation trip, starts with Indonesia to boost strategic ties. So this particular article can link with the international relations of the UPSC syllabus and bilateral and regional groupings and even the Act East policy. Okay. So here this article is about the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 3-nation visit. The visit includes Indonesia, and then to Australia, and then to New Zealand. Okay. So the main objective of this tour is to strengthen the India strategic partnership and promotes a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Okay, first of all, why did the PM visit the Indonesia first? Okay, so Indonesia is one of the India's most important partners in Southeast Asia. The Prime Minister visit is aimed at strengthening this political relations, economic cooperations, defense ties, even the maritime security and the cultural relations. This is also his first bilateral visit to Indonesia after the relationship was upgraded to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2018. So let's understand what is meant by this comprehensive strategic partnership. Okay, so this simply means that two countries cooperate in many important areas. For example, the trade and investment, defense and security, technology, connectivity, culture, maritime cooperation. So India and Indonesia are not just friendly countries, they are the strategic partners. So why is Indonesia important for India? So please look at the map of Indonesia. So whenever I look for locations, whenever I'm saying for a location, if you don't know about the location, no, so please visit it, because UPSC's favorite theme of is asking locations regarding countries or straits, or in geographical perspective. So questions are asking, that's a favorite UPSC theme. So if you doesn't know about the location, please visit it, whatever the places is coming in the news. Okay, so Indonesia is located near the Strait of Malacca. Yes, see the location of Strait of Malacca and the list of straits. Okay, so one of the, and please comment the list of straits in the world. That is very very important UPSC theme. Every year, every alternative year, one question is like coming from the straits. So please comment the strait of what are the important straits in the world. Okay, so Strait of Malacca, one of the world's busiest sea routes, a large part of the global trade and India's energy imports passes through this region. So therefore Indonesia is extremely important for maritime security, trade routes, and even the Indo-Pacific strategy. Here the articles also talks about the Act East policy. Okay, Act East policy. So, students, what is meant by this Act East policy? Earlier, India had looked the East policy, so later it was transformed into the Act East policy. The objective is not just to look towards East Asia, but to actively engage with the countries of Southeast and East Asia. The policy focuses on trade, connectivity, security, cultural relations, and even the strategic cooperation. And Indonesia is one of the key partners under this policy. And another important term mentioned in this particular article is the Mahasagar. Mahasagar. So, what is meant by this Mahasagar? Mahasagar is a mutual and holistic advancement for security across the regions. So, this is India's vision for maritime security, regional cooperation, shared growth, and stability in the Indo Pacific. So, in simple words, if I have to say, India believes that security and prosperity in the oceans should benefit everyone. Okay, so the Indo Pacific refers to the region stretching from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Today, this region is becoming very important because it has major trade routes, it has huge economic importance, and the many global powers are active here. So, if India wants these region to be free, open, and as well as inclusive, that means no country should dominate the region. International laws and freedom of navigation should be respected. And so the prime minister visited here in the Indonesia. The prime minister also visited this Parambanan temple. Parambanan temple. This is the largest Hindu temple in the Indonesia. He also watched the famous Wayang Kutli. Vayangkulit. Vayangkulit is a shadow puppet performance based on the Ramayana. So, because it shows a deep civilizational and cultural ties between the India and Indonesia, even though Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim majority country, it still has a strong cultural connections with the Indian civilization. So after Indonesia, the Prime Minister will visit Australia and the New Zealand. So these visits aims to further strengthen the strategic partnerships, economic cooperation, and as well as Indo-Pacific cooperation and India's Act East policy. Okay, so again this particular article can covers many important areas of UPSC syllabus including India-Indonesia relations, Act East policy, Indo-Pacific strategy, maritime security, even the cultural diplomacy. So it is important for both the prelims and GS paper too. Okay. Okay, let's have a quick revision of this. So yes. So PM Modi visits strengthen the India's Indonesia comprehensive strategic partnership, supports India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. Focus areas include trade, defense, maritime security and connectivity. Indonesia is a key Asian partner for India. Cultural ties are reflected through Paramban Temple and Wayang Kulit. Okay. So let's go for the next article. So diamond jewelry among payloads to be launched by Vikram 1 rocket. Okay, so this particular article can link with the UPSC syllabus of science and technology, especially the space technology and space sector reforms. Okay. So let's have a look on this. So this article is about Vikram 1, India's first privately developed this orbital class rocket. So Vikram 1, so this is a first privately developed orbital class rocket. Okay, so this rocket is developed by the Indian startup called the Skyroot Aerospace. And the interesting part of this article is that one of its payloads is actually diamond jewelry and miniature artworks. But this article is much bigger than just jewelry going to space. It is actually a story about the growth of India's private space sector. So first of all, let us understand what is meant by this Vikram 1. Vikram 1 is India's first privately developed rocket that can place satellites into the orbits. Earlier, almost all launches in India were done only by the ISRO, but now the private companies are also entering into the space sector. So, Vikram 1 is a major milestone in this journey. So, why is it called an orbital class rocket? Is because there are two types of rockets. The first one is a suborbital rockets. They go into the space but do not complete an orbit around the earth. The second one is a orbital rockets. So they place satellites into the earth's orbit. So Vikram 1 belongs to the second category, and its purpose is to launch satellites into the orbit. Okay, the mission is also called as mission Agaman. It is called as mission Agaman. So the launch is expected between July 12th and August 4th. The mission will carry 6 payloads. A payload is simply the object carried by the rocket into the space. For example, a satellite, a scientific experiments, or a technology demonstration equipment, or a research instruments. All these are called payloads. So this is not because someone wants to wear jewelry in the space. The diamond jewelry and the miniature artworks are actually a demonstration payloads. They have been designed to celebrate India's creativity, innovation, and even the scientific heritage. So they are more likely like a symbolic payloads. The article also mentions about these miniature sculptures, like tiny sculptures of Sir C.V. Raman, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam will also be carried. These are the tributaries to India's great scientists and the space visionaries. Okay, so this the biggest significance of this Vikram 1 is that it shows the rise of India's private space ecosystem. Earlier, ISRO did almost everything. Now, Indian startups are building rockets, manufacturing satellites, developing space technologies, and creating the new business opportunities. And this is a major transformation. Okay, so the government of India opened the space sector to private players through the reforms like the institutions like InSpace, and the second one is NSIL. So have encouraged the startups to participate in the space sector. Because of these reforms, companies like Skyroot Aerospace have emerged. Okay, so private companies can bring in innovation, investment, competition, and the faster development and employment opportunities. Okay, so these will help India becomes a major player in the global space economy. And the article mentions the startups like Graha Space and Cosmosurf Space. It shows that an entire space startup ecosystem is developing in India. This is similar to how India's IT sector grew years ago. Okay, so again, this particular article can link with the Atmanirbhar Bharat and innovation and entrepreneurship and the space sector reforms of the UPSC prelims and the GS3 of the syllabus. Okay, let's have a quick revision of this. Yes. Vikram 1 is India's first private orbital class launch vehicle developed by Skyroot Aerospace, and mission Agaman will carry multiple technology demonstration payloads, demonstrates the growing role of private space startups, and strengthen India's space economy and innovation ecosystem. Okay, so let's see, this is this Vikram 1. Okay, so okay, the next article is, yes, El Nino set to dent India's wind hydropower output. Again, this particular article can link with the environment and as well as the energy security of the UPSC syllabus. Okay, and even the geography. So here the article talks about how El Nino affects India's electricity sector. Usually when we hear about El Nino, we think only about the less rainfall and weak monsoons, as we discussed. So but this study says that El Nino can also reduce the hydropower generation and also the wind power generation. So and these can create a problems for India's power supply. So let us understand how. So first of all, we need to understand again what is meant by this El Nino. As I discussed, El Nino is the warming of the sea surface temperature in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. This warming changes weather patterns around the world. For India, El Nino usually means a weaker monsoons, less rainfall, high temperatures and more heat waves. Then how does this affect electricity? Think about it. During an El Nino years, India becomes hotter when temperature increases. What happened? People uses more air conditioners, coolers and fans. This means electricity demand increases. At the same time, the renewable power generation may decrease, so this creates a problem. So hydropower depends on water stored in the dams and reservoirs, but during El Nino, rainfall is usually the below normal. So less rainfall means lower water levels in the reservoirs, lower hydropower generation, so electricity production from the dams may decline. And wind turbines need strong winds, and the study says that during El Nino years, wind conditions may become weaker in some regions. As a result, wind power generation can also decrease. At one side, electricity demand goes up because of the hot weather. On the other side, renewable energy generation goes down. So these can create a generation gap. The study estimates that India could face a shortfall of nearly 18 terawatt hours of electricity. So is this a huge crisis? Not exactly, but the study says that 18 terawatts is less than 1% of India's total annual electricity generation. So it's not a major crisis, but it is still an important warning for the policymakers. The study says that most likely solutions for this particular problem is increase the coal-based power generations. Coal power plants can quickly provide the additional electricity when renewable energy generation falls, but there is a problem in coal because more coal means more carbon emission, more air pollution and more greenhouse gases. So therefore, if coal is used to fill the gap, India may release around 17 million tons of the additional carbon dioxide. So this is why climate events can also affect the environmental goals. So students, renewable energy alone is not enough for this. So here the article is suggesting we also need the battery storage system. Battery storage systems and also the better power grids and also energy storage technologies. So because solar and wind energy are not available all the time. The article also mentions that India has added a huge renewable capacity as of March 2026, and the solar power is about 150.26 gigawatts and wind power is about 56.09 gigawatts and the large hydropower is 51.41 gigawatts. This shows that India is making a rapid progress in a clean energy, but the challenges is not only about the producing the renewable energy. The challenge is how to store that energy and supply it wherever the demand increases. So this is why experts says that India needs more batteries, a better grid infrastructure, even the energy storage systems. Okay, so this is important under the UPSC syllabus of El Nino, Indian monsoons, renewable energy, energy security, climate change, and also the sustainable development part. Okay, let's have a quick revision of this. Yes. According to the CREA study, warns that El Nino may reduce wind and hydropower generation. Yes, this particular study was under this CERA. Okay, CREA. And weak monsoons lowers reservoir levels and the wind availability. Reduced renewable generation may increase coal-based electricity production. Highlights the need for battery energy storage and grid modernization. So important for energy security and climate resilience. This is a hydropower and grid energy systems. Okay. Okay, students, these are the important articles from the current affairs. I hope you enjoyed this class. Thank you for listening and all the best.